at night based on the Protivity survey. Robert Half also conducted a survey of financial executives last year, which culminated in our benchmarking the accounting and finance functions survey report. And Lorraine and I are going to be presenting some highlights from that survey. These observations, if you will, are practical and tactical, and they'll provide you with some measures as to seeing how your finance and accounting shops are stacking up and operating relative to your peers. All right, so a little bit about the survey. For 9 years, Robert Half has partnered with Financial Executives Research Foundation, I'll call it FERF for this purpose, to highlight the key trends affecting accounting and finance leaders. So a little bit about the FERF. I was surprised to see it was founded in 1944 as the research arm of FEI. And for those of you who are involved with the FEI at the local chapter leadership level, do you happen to know the year that the FEI was established?
I don't. It was in the 30s.
Wow.
Maybe 29, 31.
Very good.
31.
Bingo.
There, see, Neil, I didn't even know you were here, but I should have known that you would know. So that's awesome. The survey, last year's survey, we had more than 1,700 respondents, accounting and finance leaders, and I want to let you know a little bit more about who was responding. 22% of our respondents were CFOs, or are CFOs. 83% of them are based in the US. This survey also included Canadian finance leaders. 66% work at privately held companies. 68% work for companies with 100 million in revenue or less. And if I expand that a little bit more to companies that generate under 500 million in revenue, 84% of our respondents fell into that category. So again, as I go through some of this data, just take a step back and think about how these survey findings compare or contrast to your own finance and accounting shops. Okay, so some of the areas surveyed are the following: accounting operations, automation, and workforce management. I will be presenting the first two areas and some of the observations therein, and Lorraine will cover workforce management. But when we look at these three areas, they really essentially boil down to the shorthand of people, process, and systems. So first up, accounting operations. So this first chart, again, along the sort of the practical, tactical, day-to-day things that CFOs need to worry about, as well as their teams, are the close and reporting cycles. Can you all see this? Okay. On the left side of the chart, it talks to the working days it typically takes to close the books. And on the right side of the chart, the working days it typically takes to report financial results. And on average, in the United States, for a year-end close, 23 working days. On reporting financial results in that cycle, add another 31. Okay, so in practical terms, for a company that has a 12/31 fiscal year-end, it would take till February 1st of this year to close the books for 2018. And then financial results would be reported by March 15th of this year.
Is that public, private, or combined?
It's combined, but I would say that this is being skewed by public companies, yeah. So, and then just relative to last year's survey, there was no real change in the close. So even though we, and I'll talk about this a little bit more too, we have high intentions when it comes to automation, but we're not really seeing a change here quite yet. Now, going into this year, we'll have done the survey for 10 years, so it'll be interesting to see what's happened over a decade's worth of survey. Okay? Okay, this next chart covers actually the chart of counts, and it's broken down by revenue category. Okay, so Lorraine and I are going to conduct an impromptu survey just to get an idea of who we have represented here. So I'm just going to ask you along the lines of revenue size. Please hold your hands up until Lorraine completes her count. All right, so we'll get an idea. So please, by show of hands, how many people work for companies that generate less than 25 million in revenue?
Okay.
Hold your hands up.
I'm good. I got it. I got it.
You got it? All right. From 25 to 99 million in revenue, please. Hi, Jim. Good to see you there. Okay. 100 to 499 million in revenue. That's the B, I think. 500 to 999 million in revenue.
Okay.
Alrighty, $1 billion to 4.9 billion in revenue.
You can raise your hand, Paul.
But not on Long Island. And finally, does anyone here work for Henry Schein? Because that would be it on Long Island, over 5 billion. All right, yeah, it's fine. Count yourself too, Lorraine. Okay, so I think the greatest concentration, Lorraine, was in less than 25 million?
Yes, it was.
It was, okay. Just so you know, we looked at revenue levels for our publicly traded companies here on Long Island, and the greater percentage, 40% of those companies generate 25 to 99 million in revenue. Okay. Okay, so on to this chart. Let me just find the pointer here. So this shows the number of active GL accounts by company size. And you see that the lion's share, if I can find the pointer, right here in the 500 and less active GL accounts. 73% of companies in the United States have 500 or less active accounts. Okay? So then we took a look at, or asked our respondents, how often do you reconcile these, or how many accounts do you reconcile quarterly? Okay? And again, going way too far back, excuse me. Okay, pointer, there we go. So 91% of the respondents say that they're reconciling their general ledger accounts at least quarterly, okay? 500 or less accounts at least quarterly. So we found that interesting because the previous chart showed that 73% of respondents have 500 active accounts or less. No matter how many accounts these respondents have, 91% of them are reconciling 500 or fewer. So it suggests that they either have to fix their process or clean up their chart of accounts, okay? We also asked the respondents how they're reconciling the accounts. And again, we're going to see the common and persistent theme that manual reconciliation process still is what most respondents are doing. In the US, that's 55%. Either manually reconcile their accounts or do not use a tool or system. Okay, so again, despite our best intentions. And we'll start to see some of the more of those insights in the automation section. Okay. There was a silver lining. Last year, when asked the same question, 58% were still manually reconciling accounts. So there is a slight improvement in this area. Okay, so some key takeaways. Again, I think these takeaways are common, persistent, and common sense. So automation and technology adoption will lead to closing the books and reporting financials faster. And something that's also been persistent in my own career when I was in finance and accounting is the challenge to shift the effort from manual processes to value-added activities that help the business. Okay, so again, technology can help in that way. So in the next section, we're going to talk about how the respondents weighed in on automation. But first, some comic relief. Okay, I hope you can all see this. These two gentlemen peering out a window, one with binoculars, saying, I know this accounting in the cloud is supposed to make things easier, but how do we know which one is ours, right? So as we over the years have tried to wrap our head around what cloud computing means. I thought that this, Lorraine actually found this one, but I thought this really summed it up well. Okay. So taking a look at the cloud. So 55% of US firms are using some or only cloud-based solutions in their accounting and finance functions. And that, I believe, is up a little bit from last year's survey. I believe that the number last year was 51%. An additional 20% of the respondents said that they're planning to do so in the future. There has been some resistance over the years to the adoption of cloud-based technologies, and I think it goes to what Justin talked about as one of the top concerns of CFOs, which is the security and privacy of data. Okay, by the numbers. So, Lorraine and I found this really quite interesting. For companies in the less than 25 million revenue category, 53% of those companies are using some cloud-based solutions or only cloud-based solutions. So we thought that was quite interesting. For the folks here, is that on par with where you're at with cloud-based technologies?
QuickBooks Online.
Okay, sure. And that's what's probably happening in here. All right. Okay. By the brand, cloud-based solutions, we see, the names we run into all the time: MS Dynamics, NetSuite, Oracle, SAP. But if you take a look at that bottom line, other, and you look at the less than 25 million category, 85%. So there's your QuickBooks Online deal. And it drops significantly and dramatically as you go across the revenue categories, where companies in the 5 billion and over. Lorraine, I hope you're learning from me here.
Yep.
Okay, 25% are using others, so they're really using more of the big ERP that we hear about. Flipping over to the FP&A side of the house, basically in terms of the type of tools that are used for budgeting and planning, significantly popping out here is the use and continued dependence on Excel. And the delineation here seems to be at the 1 billion mark, which drops down to the 40% usage of Excel, and you see more of the reporting tools that sit on top of an ERP, like SAP Business Planning and Consolidation. But still to this day, and what's interesting as an anecdote from my own career, and not to date myself, but this actually happened last century. I was working for a CFO who wrote a memo to the entire finance and accounting team saying, if I were king, we would use Excel 0% of the time. So to this day, clearly his dreams are not a reality, not even close. Okay. So some of the key takeaways in the automation section. As we automate, it does tend to have a positive and domino effect on organizations. So the more processes that are automated, the more the teams are motivated to find additional processes to automate because they see the benefit of doing so. And again, it goes back to how they get to shift their efforts between manual processes to value add for the business. And of course, some of the known benefits of automation are flexibility, scalability, and cost savings. All right, so any questions on these two sections, accounting operations or automation? Oh.
Yeah. Both you and Justin talked about automation, which is probably one of the ways that companies are accelerating and closing. What are the key areas? I mean, obviously we've all probably dealt with automating the bank reconciliation process through the services that banks offer, et cetera, et cetera. What are the other areas that you're seeing companies use automation to help in the closing process and accelerate the closing process?
From our perspective, I mean, anything they can do with some of the reporting tools that we've been that I talked about in one of the slides that sit on top of their ERP to help them extract data. But a lot of times it's ending up back in Excel, right, for manipulation. Justin, on your side?
So what we're seeing it right now is with the transition to lease accounting where, you know, folks are making kind of robots that can go in and read a lease and extract the key data points out. They get it 70, 80% accurate, but you know, it's still a huge time saver.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Anybody else? Okay, Lorraine?